how diversity of worldviews impact human thinking.
Cultures have a profound effect on human thinking. And if you look at cultures around the world, they can broadly be divided into two types of cultures. Almost all religions are similar, very same at the core. Language has a profound impact. The moment you stop questioning what you're learning, you've stopped learning. Individual freedom is paramount. Indian culture is a classic example. The right to make the decision for economic prosperity, the individual decision making, individualistic societies fare far better.
Hello, friends. I welcome you all to a conversation with Sabeer Bhatia. A very different, though very important conversation. And this conversation is going to be on how diversity of worldviews impacts human thinking. So Sabeer he's a very avid scholar he reads a lot about worldviews and human thought processes, and has with him a huge repertoire of information and knowledge on the subject. Sabeer, the first question I'll ask you to introduce the subject with is, how do cultural backgrounds shape our thought processes?
Cultures have a profound effect on human thinking. And if you look at cultures around the world, they can broadly be divided into two types of cultures. One is individualistic cultures, but these are cultures that promote independent decision making and thinking. The American culture is a classic example. Individual freedom is paramount, and they encourage individuals to make decisions from a very early age. From the time a child is born, he or she is asked, what would you like to eat? Where would you like to go for your vacation? Do you want to go to McDonald's or do you want to go to Taco Bell? And then there are other cultures. There are collectivist cultures that promote harmony and consensus-based decision making. Indian culture is a classic example. The right to make the decision to which restaurant to go to is not made by individuals. It's made by the patriarch. Whatever the boss says, whichever place we will go to for lunch or dinner, whether it's McDonald's or Taco Bell, is the right answer. And so these two have a profound impact on how individuals grow up seeing the world. Whether they think that their decisions, individual decisions, contribute to a better well-being of all of the world, or is it a collective decision making which may be the right decision for the entire group. It may be a small group like an individual family. It may be a little city or a state or a country. So in collectivist cultures, the individual decisions don't seem to have that much of significance, because you will let go of your personal choice for the better good of the larger choice for everyone.
So that's very good, and of course very understandable. But do you think that individualistic cultures are now kind of giving way to collective cultures, or is it the other way around?
I think there is some happy medium between the two, because the individualistic cultures have been great for personal prosperity, for prosperity of the country. I mean, it's because of individual exceptionalism that if some person has a brilliant idea of doing something differently from the way it was done before, it has become the norm. And obviously for example, this IP economy of Silicon Valley is built on individual brilliance. And at most, even if it is not individual brilliance, it's the brilliance of a few handful, 2 or 3 people who start companies and go on to make multi-billion-dollar empires. Now, the whole collectivist decision making is more like getting consensus and harmony, and that can impede decision making. So that in today's day and age could slow down the rate of progress, because you have everyone, a committee makes a decision, the committee has to agree, the committee will take 3-4 months to make a decision, and if you wait for 3 or 4 months in this day and age, the train may have left the station, some other company could have eaten your lunch. And it's because of that, it is not the right mechanism to make decisions for IP based companies. It may be for others, but all in all, I think for economic prosperity, the individual decision making, individualistic societies fare far better.
Empirically, also, it has been proven as such. Western economies have produced more enterprise, more entrepreneurs, and therefore more economic success. I hate to say this, as compared to the Eastern and the socialistic ones, so to say. And now we have seen it. It's empirically proven. Next question, therefore, is what is the role of language in shaping our worldview and cognitive processes?
Huge. Once again, we have two different types of language, expressions to express the same thought. Even in India, you take a language, a rich language like Urdu, it has a certain way of describing an event or displeasure at somebody else, which is very different from the crass, direct way of expressing that same thing. So it points to a difference of worldview. In one case, people are eager to to put somebody else down, if you will, whereas in another culture, within the same country, there is a certain elegance to doing that. So there is a certain amount of respect for the other individual. So now it comes to who is right and wrong versus who has a higher status in society versus not. And that is very indicative of an individual's worldview. So here you're seeing this occur within the boundaries of just one country. So language has a profound impact on how people think.
Good thought, actually. Come to think of it, and so similarly, what about education? What is the role of education?
Education has a huge impact. I mean, we have had so many discussions on rote-based learning, an environment where people are not encouraged to ask questions, just listen. It's a one-way traffic of knowledge flow from the teacher to the student, as opposed to a healthy two-way interaction. When it's a one-way flow, and a student thinks that a student is of a lesser, is less equal than their teacher, I mean, then it's just a question of imbibing knowledge, not questioning it. The moment you stop questioning what you're learning, you stop learning. And so education has a huge role to play. I mean, I have experienced both systems of education. I'll give you a personal example also. When I first went to Caltech, and of course I came from the Indian system, which was, much more subservient, if you will, for lack of a better word. And we were told to study books and essentially master them within the box and go and be experts at that while taking a test. One of the first things I was asked to do at Caltech was to write an essay. And an essay that required me to read 3 or 4 books. So I read these 3-4 books and I summarized the viewpoints and I wrote the essay and I got a D. And I went to the teacher and asked him, I read all 4 books and I've written this and I've gotten a D. Well, the teacher said, I know the viewpoints of those 4 books. I want to see what is your viewpoint on this, or your point of view on this subject. And that's what opened my eyes, that is true education, which encourages you to explore the small hidden corners of your mind, to come up with your interpretation of the subject and your view of the subject, and I think that leads to a much better outcome, because then when a decision is made, everybody's input is taken, and oftentimes, a group of people, always comes up with a better answer than an individual. So education has a profound impact, because a system of education that is exploratory, that allows for diversity of thinking and opinions, is a much better education than one that is conformist and relies only on one set of facts, or one truth, if you will, as opposed to multiple truths and multiple interpretations of one truth.
Okay. And then, of course, we from education we come to economic conditions, of individuals. Now, there are the haves and the have-nots. So, in the context of haves, thinking gets a little more facilitated. It comes from a calm mind. It comes from a happy, satisfied mind, and it's more contained, assuming. And if you come from a have-not situation, then there's always something in the back of the mind. Where is my next piece of bread coming from? Now, if this is what is going to engage the attention of the mind, of the person, then how will thought processes be that hygienic and productive?
Yeah, good point. So one is a scarcity based mindset, which is about short term profits, short term gains, achieving profitability as quickly as possible, as opposed to a long term opinion, a view. The fundamental technologies that have really changed all of humanity, whether it's the internet, it's the World Wide Web, or it's, even more recently, companies like Google. For 6 years, Google did not know how it was going to make money. It just started, and it started getting a lot of traffic, and one day it figured out how to convert that traffic into meaningful revenue. But their investors had that long-term view. So also take a look at the internet itself. The internet was originally, created by the U.S. Defense in 1969. And other educational institutions. It was not till 1991 the internet was, exclusively being used mostly by the educational institutions and defense institutions. It was only after the introduction of the World Wide Web in 1993-94 that there was an explosion in the usage of the internet. And a few people like Mark Andreessen and Jim Clark saw that, and they knew instinctively that one day that the whole world, and including companies, would use the World Wide Web, and there would be all sorts of services and products and companies that would be created on the web. It is completely out of pure human imagination and thought. But that kind of thinking comes from a non-scarcity kind of mindset. They didn't think about profits. They were just letting their imagination run wild. And today that imagination has resulted in 40, 50 trillion dollars worth of companies being created. And, even Hotmail, in some sense, was a solution to a problem that was newly introduced with, firewalls and corporate intranets, and introduction of the intranet, which was the internet for companies within their firewalls.
Okay. Sabeer, then we come to the other diversity, which is that of religion. Religions are different, they emanate from completely different thought processes, their underlying philosophies are different. They are alike also. There are some religions who belong to the same school of thought, some are different. So obviously, in how do religious beliefs influence cognitive styles and perceptions. There are some religions that advocate, for example, a lot of self-care and attention to the self, and there are others which are very altruistic, and diversity there.
Yeah. So, very good question. First of all, I think fundamentally, almost all religions are similar, very same at the core, But then, of course, when you go into how religions have affected causality, for example, was it an act of fate or was it free will? Ethical decisions that are made based on religious beliefs, forms of punishment, for example. Western religions like, or at least the interpretation of Western religions like Christianity, for example, look at, shaming the individual, more like an introspection based on, conscience. Whereas other religions are like, okay, if somebody has committed a crime, give that individual physical punishment. That is a deterrence. So those do affect the worldview and the way people think, the way people arrive at decisions, the way people see the whole world. So religion has a huge, because, when we grow up, not only are we educated with a formal education, but a lot of education is and values are imparted in people's households, in their immediate families, and those are influenced by religion, obviously, because every family, if they are religious, either practice some sort of faith, go to the temple or go to a gurdwara, or go to a church. And so religion has a huge impact, on people's world views, if you will, and that directly affects their thinking.
Because you have these three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They come from the same trunk, the Semitic religions. And then you have the Eastern religions mostly. So I think the Eastern religions believe in reformation and evolution, gradualism, and all that. But the Semitic religions, if they go more for retributive penalty and deterrence and all that, not reformation so much. So obviously there is a difference, but therefore there is diversity. And I don't know where the aggregation of thought will take place, because that would lead to world peace more than anything else.
Yeah, I think if people fundamentally believe in a what are instinctive uh, uh, ideas or thoughts are, I think pretty much, and coupled with kind of a legal framework where we use an agreement to resolve our differences, where we negotiate our differences on a table, I think, and have open and free communication, which is not just how much I take and how much you can give, but how can we make the outcome better for all of us. I think it can resolve most conflicts in the world.
That is a pertinent view, definitely. That's so. Now coming back to what's close to you, which is technology, and related therefore media. So how can technology and media, reshape our cognitive styles?
Very good question again. I'm witnessing how the process of decision making that I follow for my personal life versus I'm looking at how my kids are consuming media and how much media is influencing them. They are living in an instant gratification world, where they have to get an answer to their problem immediately. And of course, their attention spans are also vastly reduced. For example, we used to watch movies that sometimes took 2 hours before it came to any sort of a logical conclusion and before we got a message from the movie. Today, they want that message in 2 minutes or under 2 minutes, 30 seconds. When they watch YouTube shorts or a TikTok video or an Instagram reel, they have to figure out what is the message from this reel immediately. I want to know now, and so I worry. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, that a lot of their decisions will be short-term decisions without the longer-term implications of immediate decision making. They look for happiness immediately in a like or a dislike or an approval or a disapproval or somebody answering their text or not. We grew up in a different world, and hopefully our view is more longer term and more of a worldview decision making process.
So this, what you're saying, is holds true for media as well.
Media is coming at people at an incredible pace right now. How many times when I was growing up, I used to watch a movie once a week, every Sunday evening or something. And now, these kids, they are watching 500 movies in a day, which are mini movies, but just being thrown at them.
Exactly. That TikTok and all that, so short videos.
That's right.
Okay. How does the political environment influence individual and collective thought processes, both individual and collective? The political environment and political maybe leadership.
Yeah, so it does affect, obviously, and it's all it's a balance between authoritarian regimes take away individual freedoms. On the other hand, those countries there where individual freedom is of paramount importance, political institutions have very little control. So this alters people's worldview and how they can play in it, right? If you are in a system that promotes individual freedom, you will think about creating anything and everything. It's all up to you. What's in your head? You want to change the world, you can go try to change the world. You believe in making a new product the world has never seen, you'll go and do it. Whereas in more authoritarian regimes, you will first say, am I breaking the law? Does the state have the power to shut me down? Will they stop this? Because am I violating some laws? Look at in India, we had some laws that dated back to, 1867, which were the Indian Telegraph Act, which kind of made this whole wireless communication or using voice over IP illegal. How can you make voice over IP illegal? Voice over IP was the future. It was only after, a certain company came out with a certain product that, VoIP was made legal and allowed. I've had a situation where one of my companies, was told to cease operations because they were perceived to be using voice over IP. That's the level of enforcement of rules and regulations. So overzealous enforcement of rules of regulation leads to, less creative thinking, less out-of-box thinking. So that it does affect the cognitive, outcomes of societies also, obviously.
Though there's a bit of a paradox. The paradox is that, dictatorial societies or polities, political systems, they kind of favor the collective thought processes more, not leading to enterprise, not leading to out-of-the-box thinking, but they're dictatorial.
Yes.
So, and the democratic ones, they lead to a kind of a free play for ideas and therefore are more productive from the creative, critical thinking point of view.
Absolutely.
This is a bit of a paradox though, but nevertheless, I guess societies work on the basis of a lot of paradoxes. And lastly, and most importantly, what is the role of personal experiences in shaping worldview and cognitive, biases, if you might call it
Huge,
that?
huge. Obviously, individual experiences shape all of our decisions. So if we've been betrayed in the past, we'll be less trustful of other fellow human beings. Obviously, we will have a different worldview. If some of us have had a marriage that's been unsuccessful or a friendship that's been unsuccessful, we change how we view friendships, how we view marriages, and that leads to more I should say more risk averse decision making, right? It's all a question of how you make decisions, whether you embrace newer technologies or you stick to the old worldview because you're happy in it. That's the world you were born in, that's the world that you want to play in. Then you are more resistant to change. And it ultimately, people who take risks, risk with their careers, risk with their money, throw it at newer technologies, eventually, if when they do succeed, they have phenomenally positive outcomes. So risk taking is directly influenced by personal experiences, in a nutshell, to answer your very deep question in kind of a roundabout way.
And also a question which will encompass a, a huge, broadscape of experiences and views. So obviously, personal experiences, I think, of the greatest importance. So viewers, I hope you enjoyed this conversation on how diversity of worldviews impacts human thinking, because this is something that's attendant to you all in your lives every single day. Thank you for being with us. And should you have questions for us, for Sabeer, do feel free to put your questions on the Bcubed Showreel app. And that you will get either from Play Store or App Store. You download it, put your questions there, send them to us, and Sabeer and I will both be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you. And Sabeer, thank you very much for traveling all the way around the globe to address and engage our audiences in such a lovely and informative show. Thank you very much indeed, and we certainly will look forward to more coming from you in times ahead.
Thank you so much, Javed. And I would like to add one thing. In the course of these 27 episodes, we have covered such a diverse range of subjects, topics, opinions from thought leaders. And if you were to ask me to sum it all up in one line, what would it be? And my answer to you would be, we began with how, went to why, and now we are knocking on the doors of why not, which we will explore in season 3.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.